Well, good day to you. It is April the 28th, and I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. Now, if this is your first time ever listening to this channel, my name is Gary Willing, and what do we talk about? Well, we have a lot of videos where we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. Another way of looking at it is the reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. Even another way of looking at it is the return of the awaited teacher, who made a promise to each one of the religious groups, is now back and is already speaking on TV. He's not claiming to be anything special. He's just claiming to be an ordinary person, presenting himself like that, who's deeply concerned about the problems that we're all facing and is starting to wake us up to the fact that we ourselves must do something about these problems. So it's taken some time for most of us to recognize who and what Maitreya is on TV, but the time is coming when we will all see the sanity of what this person is saying and be inspired to do something about it. Now, the most important thing that any one of us could do right at this moment in time is to look at and see for ourselves that the truth that we are all one. Now, most of us live very separate, unrelated lives with one another, and I think that that's normal, right? Well, the teacher says it like this. It's something kind of like this. I'm paraphrasing. All of life's problems, sorrows, heartaches, pain and suffering, even all the ills that we all have, are due to the fact that we believe ourselves to be separate. Now, the other thing, too, I want to say before I get into the religious aspect of this, because it's very disconcerting to people who are religious when they hear this message, and they're, because they're thinking that myself or even Maitreya is going to try to convince them to change their beliefs on anything. So I'm going to actually bring in some heavy guns here by this. This is actually coming from Maitreya himself about that very thing. So hopefully this will put your mind to rest, okay? If you're fundamental in the way that you think, there's nothing wrong with that, but hopefully you'll see that what I'm saying is true. And even if you have heard this information before and are wondering why you haven't seen them on TV and are looking all over the TV trying to find them, this will also hopefully get rid of some of your angst about all that. So he says, do not run after me. I have not come to found a new religion. Each of you should continue to develop within your own religious tradition. I have not come to create followers. Even when you see me, do not run after me. If you run after me, you will lose me. I have come to teach the art of self-realization. This is neither an ideology nor a religion, and benefits people of all religions or none. I belong to everyone. So, hopefully that puts your mind to rest a little bit. But even if you can just broaden your horizon just a little bit and see that we are one, well, that's a step in the right direction. Now, is it true that we are one? And if it is true that we are one, is it possible to manifest that in real life in the year 2021? Well, let's try to answer those questions real quick before we get into this video, because it's very important for us to look at it like this. Is it true that we are one? I think there are two things that are telling us that we are. One of the many miracle signs that are going on: healing waters, crosses of light, crop circles, angel sightings, visions of the Madonna, weeping icons, the Hindu milk miracle. They're happening to people of all particular religious groups and of people of no particular religious faith, and they're leaving people with a sense of hope for the future. So therefore, if the hope for mankind is for all of mankind, then those miracles are teaching us that we are one. Now, what you might not be thinking about, are the problems that are facing humanity. We're all aware of the problems that humanity's been putting off for so long and how dangerous they are that we're putting it off, right? Well, they're also telling us that we are one because we have to solve these problems together. So the environment is a good example of this. We all breathe the same air. We're all drinking the same polluted water. We're all eating the same polluted food. And even if one or two countries go totally green, it's not going to be good enough. We all have to do something about it. And even if you broaden your vision out even farther, even if the entire continent of Africa went totally green, well, Asia's got to do something about it. North and South America, Europe, Australia, we all have to do something about it, or it's going to be too late, right? So we must tackle these problems together. And it's not just the environment, it's also the injustices in the world. It's the political divisions. I mean, that list is just as long as the miracles themselves, right? The problems that we have to tackle and solve together. Now, the solution to how we can manifest unity in real life, and oneness on planet Earth is quite simple. The teacher puts it like this: without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. And peace is oneness manifested in real life on planet Earth. That's another way of putting it. And how important is it? It's just what the teacher said. Without peace, there could be no future. So we must create oneness on this planet, or we will all perish together. So, just like they said in the movie The Matrix, I'm only concerned about one thing, and it's the future. And the only way to get there is together. Well, there is a lot of truth to that. So hopefully you'll investigate this, look at this, start to look at the environment, educate yourself on the problems in the environment, start to see that these miracles are going on and are happening to every particular religious group and people of no particular religious faith at all, and hopefully start to do something about it within yourself. So that is the intention of these videos. Now, the other thing that we talk about in these videos are we try to answer some questions. People post questions as comments. That's the best way to do it. People have commented, and I've talked about those comments, and that helps us to kind of solidify this information within ourselves and kind of ground it within ourselves. But again, it doesn't mean much until we put it into practice. So hopefully we'll start to do that as well. Now, if you have a question, like I said, post your question as a comment. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. But the other way of educating yourself in this information is to look at the links in the description of these videos. That can get you started. You can see what I'm saying is true. People ask me all the time, do I have any evidence of this? Yes, there's evidence of both of things that I said. There's evidence of these miracles that have been going on. You can see for yourself, that they've been going on, how long they've been going on, how they've been happening to different religious groups and so forth. And of course, then you can look at the problems that are facing humanity and ask yourself, can this be solved by one or two people or one or two nations or even one continent alone? Or does it have to be something that we all do together? And that will hopefully wake you up to the fact that we are one too. So, which is the reason why we're experiencing both those things simultaneously. So now let's get on into the comments here. This person was commenting about Krishnamurti. Now, I had talked about Krishnamurti in the last video, and I had talked about his role in the teachings of Maitreya. And the age-old way of the teacher teaching humanity for eons was always a very highly evolved disciple was going to do it for them. And then the teacher would work through them telepathically. This is what happened with Jesus 2,000 years ago. He was the world teacher for the then new age of Pisces. And he gave his teachings to this small group of people in Palestine, and then it disseminated all over the planet, and it created Christendom, really. But at the time that Jesus was in Palestine, he was a very, very advanced disciple, but he was not himself a master at that time. He's now one of the many masters, and a great master still here on planet Earth, who will be out open along with Maitreya, helping us to save ourselves, save the environment and so forth in this coming time. So we'll see him on TV just as well as we see Maitreya on TV. But that's how the teacher usually worked was through a very advanced disciple. And it was originally planned that Krishnamurti would be that teacher for this age. He was evolved enough. He was willing to do it. And Maitreya was training him in the same way that he trained Jesus for that role. But what happened was Maitreya himself saw that he would have to come back, not through a disciple in that way. And he would have to come back far sooner than they were expecting, because it was originally expected that the masters would come back another 1,000 years from now. And that was only about 100 or so years ago that was the plan. And then when humanity developed the nuclear bomb, well then shoot, if these divisions continue to go on, these injustices continue to go on, there's no peace in the world, well then it would be very likely that we would destroy ourselves. That's why the Christ had to come back in the world in an hour when we least expect it, like a thief in the night, which is exactly what he did. So that's what I was talking about with Krishnamurti. And then I said something about, I have a link in the description and I'm going to keep it in there because it's an amazing talk where you can actually hear the teachings of Krishnamurti, which are the teachings of Maitreya. So this person wrote, Krishnamurti is a great teacher, although he did pull away from the later denounced the Theosophical movement in the end. Though I have often wondered if it was the ideas generated by the followers of the Theosophical Society that he wished to distance from and negate rather than the true essence of the basis of which Theosophy was built upon, because that always remained his focus and teaching till the end. Man has a way of altering a message due to our limited perception and dualistic mindset. Just look at religion. Perhaps it's like the idea of, quote, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao, unquote. Because once the average man conceptualizes something, that very act has begun to ruin its potential and created limitations around its true transformative powers. Just a thought. Well, it's interesting that how close you were to what I was going to read about. And I was waiting for the next video. I was going to talk about this. It's funny. You kind of beat me to the punch, Zen. This is actually, I started reading from the book, The Laws of Life, and it's Maitreya's teachings. And a lot of them came from Maitreya's giving some of his teachings when he was in the Asian community of London through one of his associates. And then his associate had them published in Share International magazine. And they're quite extraordinary. They're about a lot of different things. Some of the predictions that he made about the ending of apartheid, the ending of the Cold War, the fact that George Herbert Walker Bush would lose the election, even though he was at a 90-something% approval rating when he made that prediction. So these were all given through Maitreya's associate. But anyway, he talks about Krishnamurti in almost the same way that you just mentioned. So, but hopefully this will help clarify some things. He said, when Krishnamurti was asked to take up certain positions, he declined, saying he was not a guru of anything. He was a true disciple of Maitreya. The teachings of Krishnamurti are the teachings of Maitreya. Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey had glimpses of the teaching, but they became involved in the process of teaching. In Maitreya's view, everyone in the Theosophical Society except Krishnamurti failed in the sense that they got more involved in the mechanism of the forces of evolution and the search for their sources instead of realizing the teachings of the Lord. Krishnamurti wanted no one to interpret his teachings. Those who were interested could listen to his tape talks. And I put a link, I said, in the description of this video. I'm going to leave it up there as long as this channel's up. And I do recommend, if you are interested in this information at all, to definitely check it out. And then hopefully subscribe to the Krishnamurti channel, because they put up videos all the time of his talks that he gave, 30, 40, 50 years ago and so forth. It's wonderful information, and wonderful truth. But, it's interesting. The Theosophical Society, the Lucius Trust group around the Alice Bailey, and then now with the Share International group, not to be hypercritical, but they're all suffering the same fate, and it's sad, because Benjamin Creme's master, when he was working through Ben with the Share International groups, said that they should not have any officers, should not have any names, should not even name the group. It should just be open and free. And that was the original idea of what became of Share International, coming from Benjamin Creme's master. And in the end, I'm hoping that the situation changes for them, but they are very much suffering the same fate as the Lucius Trust and the Theosophical Society. And Krishnamurti is the perfect example, according to Maitreya, of how to live the teachings of Maitreya and not create an ideology around it. Like I said earlier, don't follow him. Once you follow him, you've already lost him. Once you try to create an ideology or an ism around the teachings of Jesus or Maitreya, you've already lost the teachings, and that's the battle that, we all have to face when it comes to walking the path toward the truth of being a master, really. But thank you for that. Now, the next one I want to talk about is about the Antichrist. People have put up comments in the past about the Antichrist, and I want to comment about it real quick. There are people, of course, who have devoted quite a bit of time in their life to trying to find the Antichrist. And they put up videos all the time. This person's the Antichrist, that famous person's the Antichrist, and so forth. And there are several reasons why. One is they're paranoid in their view, but there's a reason why spiritually it's happening. It's because the fact that the Christ is actually back in the world is actually bringing this up for them. It's a way of looking for the Christ, really. And it's a signal that the Christ is back in the world, believe it or not. And the people who are fearful that Maitreya is the Antichrist, of course, have never heard him speak. They've never met him. If they've seen him on TV, they haven't even recognized him, but yet they're convinced he's the Antichrist. Now, I want to leave you with this thought. The Antichrist is an energy, and it's an energy that is released to destroy the old ways of thinking and relating, to allow a new way of thinking and relating. It was released during the time of Nero. It destroyed Roman dispensation and it allowed Christendom to flourish, which it did. It was re-released again during the resurfacing of an ancient war of World War I and World War II, which is, like I said, was a resurfacing of an ancient war eons and eons and eons ago on planet Earth between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. And it was released through the Axis powers. Now, it's not true to say that Hitler was the Antichrist, but he certainly was the face of the franchise, really. And the qualities that people are looking for in an individual called the Antichrist or the false prophet, you could really see in Hitler if you studied history. He fooled the very elite. Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister of England, adored Hitler. Especially, and they thought that Hitler was making these wonderful changes in Reconstruction in Germany, right? But all the while he was building this political, mechanism to help take over Europe, right? And hopefully take over the world. That was his plan, right? But he was fooling people. He fooled, some of the people in the United States into thinking he was doing really good works and so forth. But he had this ulterior motive the whole time, which, of course, we all know the final outcome of it, right? But if you study your history and look at Hitler in that way, you'll see that he really did manifest that energy in a lot of ways. And so I think, it's the single biggest misinterpretation of the Bible, of the bookends of the Bible, really, of Genesis and of Revelation, is the time frame. The fundamentalist Christian misinterprets how long it took to create all of the universe, because Moses wrote it in there as 7 24-hour periods called days, right? Well, maybe that was just a symbol for something. Maybe he was just communicating to people that had no concept of a billion years or what an eon was, or even a decade was for that matter, right? And then looking at the way that John was trying to interpret the symbols that he saw for the future, right? It created a misinterpretation in the mind of the reader about the time frame of everything. They were viewing it as a very limited amount of time, when it actually, if you broadened it out from when, if he was talking about Nero as one beast, which was 2,000 years ago, now it's kind of like the middle act of it. It's, within the last 100 years to probably another 100 or so years from now is the middle part. And then it's been said in Revelation that the beast will be chained down for a time and a half, right? Well, that's halfway through the age of Capricorn, which is another 3,000 and some odd years from now. So it's about 4,000 or 5,000 year time frame. And so much broader than what the fundamentalist Christian thinks. And if they looked at it like that, they could kind of get like, okay, the Antichrist has already come and gone. So, but it is, from the master's point of view, a signal that humanity is ready for the Christ, that people are looking for the Antichrist, actually. So hopefully that helps. Now, this article that I'm about to read talks about a little bit about that. It's entitled The Return of the Christ, and it was written by a master who shall remain nameless for a little bit of time. But this master worked through Benjamin Creme in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that he got the information about about Maitreya, about the masters, out to the public was writing articles that were published through Benjamin Creme, and they were published in Share International on a monthly basis. And you can read these articles online at shareinternational.org. Link is in the description. You can also buy this book, A Master Speaks, Volume 1, that I'm reading from, or Volume 2. And the link is in the description for that by going to Amazon. But I want you to think of me when I read this a lot like a waiter coming up to you in a nice restaurant telling you about the specials of the evening, right? I mean, the waiter tells you all the wonderful things that the dish has, how they made it, the herbs and the spices and the sauce that they put in it, the type of meat that it is perhaps, or whatever, and how wonderful it is, and of course the price. But it's not until you actually take your fork and cut into it that you really get to taste it, right? And you really get to experience the wondrous of that dish, right, that waiter's talking about. It's the same thing with these articles. It's not until you read it yourself that you'll see the truth for it yourself. So I'm only just saying this to hopefully inspire you to look at these articles and read these articles, experience the truth for yourself, because that's where you're really going to see it for yourself. So anyway, hopefully we'll take action and do that too. Anyway, let's get on into it. It says, today the world stands ready to receive into its midst the teacher, the avatar, the forerunner of the new age. On all sides, a high expectancy is becoming manifest. On every hand, people are becoming aware, however dimly, that the destined hour has struck. Cleavages abound, but more and more the nations are realizing their interdependence and the need for concerted action in solving their problems. Global consciousness is growing. Slowly but surely, and humanity today stands in better readiness for the Christ's return than ever before in its history. Many are the ways in which he is awaited today. Many are the hopes he is expected to fulfill. Manifold are the tasks that await his wise concern and dutiful care. The Christ Maitreya is poised to assume the role of teacher to a world longing for truth. Lost in the labyrinth, mankind struggles to free itself from the shackles of ignorance and greed, and seeks a saner, simpler life in which to work out its destiny. Into this turmoil has come the Christ, answering man's call for succor. How will he proceed? What will be his first tasks as he confronts the world's problems and begins his mission? The solution to the problem of hunger and starvation in the midst of plenty will be his aim, giving voice, therefore, to the aspirations of millions for a better, more just world. Thereafter, his plans concern the stabilization of the world's political imbalances, the restructuring of the economic order along more rational lines. With all of this, he must contend, showing men the way, step by step, to restructure their lives. Under his inspiration and guidance, humanity will transform itself and its structures, opening the way, therefore, for a deeper understanding and expression of the reality of which it is a part. The immediate task is galvanizing of world public opinion. Otherwise, his call for justice would go unimplemented. When the alternatives before the race, peace through sharing or war and destruction, are clearly understood, millions will align themselves with the advocacy of the Christ and call for an end to injustice, misery, and war. The task before the Christ will be so to guide the mounting cry for freedom, sharing, and peace that the minimum cleavage results. Half the world's population now lives in poverty. Enormous gaps exist between the rich and the poor. Inherent in the tensions thus engendering is great danger for mankind. The Christ will point the way forward, reducing step by step these iniquities and tensions, so ensuring a relatively tranquil transition to the new age. All has been carefully planned beforehand. Nothing has been left to chance. But humanity itself will determine the speed and implementation of the needed changes. For mankind's free will may never be infringed. Those who read these words have now the choice to aid the Christ in his work and help to awaken mankind to the needs of the time, thus serving the race in a most potent fashion, or to await events in passive inaction, so rejecting an opportunity for growth seldom given to any generation. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.